Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy here today to give you a review of Sin City: A Dame to Kill For. So Sin City: A Dame to Kill For follows the same story structure as the first film, where you got three stories going on, each with their own main characters. The first story follows a new character by the name of Johnny, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is a man on a good luck streak and challenges Senator Rourke at a game of poker. The second story follows Dwight McCarthy, now played by Josh Brolin, which I found kind of bizarre. I mean, what was Clive Owen doing that he couldn't reprise his role? But anyway, I digress. It follows him as he deals with a former love interest from his past life. And then you got the third story following Nancy as she seeks revenge on Senator Rourke for the death of John Hartigan. Now, I have been anxiously anticipating this sequel for 9 whole years. After finishing the first one, I couldn't get enough. I wanted more. I wanted to see the characters again. I wanted to see this visual style again. I wanted to know more stories about the world of Sin City. Like, I'm not even lying to you guys. Sin City, the first Sin City, this one right here, is one of my favorite films of all time. I love the stories in it. I love the characters. The direction by Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller was on point, and the visual style. It felt like a comic book, like I was watching a comic book come to life. It really was reminiscent of the original source material, like almost on point. Like if you were to read, like this is The Hard Goodbye, which is, I believe, the second story in the first movie. There are just scenes out of this book that were put on the screen exactly how they are in the comic, and it just blew my freaking mind. So, needless to say, the sequel had some big shoes to fill. And after waiting for almost 9 years for the sequel, my anticipation for it kind of waned a little bit, but then it came right back up when I saw the first trailer. I'm like, oh my god, the visual style is still the same. I hope the characters are still the same. I mean, they got Mickey Rourke back. They were saying they weren't going to bring him back, which really scared me. And I was kind of pissed that they replaced some of the characters. Like, some of them I understand. So anyway, to get to the point, I was very excited, but also really scared for the sequel because I couldn't wait to see it, man. After 9 years, I've been waiting for it. But I was also scared because, again, 9 years it's been in production. Ever since 2009 when they first announced the title, which is A Dame to Kill For. It took them 5 years to make the film. And I was just scared. Like, I've been hearing a lot of the production issues and the fact that they were trying to cast actors and they would drop out. I was like, I hope this film isn't bad. And I gotta say, it turned out better than I expected. Is it as good as the first one? No, not really. But it still embodies everything that the first one brought to the table. And I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. First things first, the visual style. I, for one, still love the visual style of this film. It still feels like a comic book come to life. And how they would add in some color scenes, like a character's eyes will glow green or some type of color, or their lipstick will stand out, or their hair color will really stand out. I felt like really added a very unique flair to it. Yeah, I know it's nothing new, but I still think it looks fucking awesome. And the whole black and white backdrop really complements this film, not only because it's very reminiscent to the original comic book, and also it gives off this whole noir feel to the film, but also because it gives a sense of dreary and hopelessness, which Sin City has. I mean, it's a city full of sin and corruption. This city will literally eat you alive, and the visuals definitely cement that. Most of the stories and characters in this film are very interesting and quite entertaining. Some of the standout stories, or at least story parts in this film, is whenever Johnny would have kind of like this stare down with Senator Rourke at the poker match. Those were really cool and intense scenes. The entire story of A Dame to Kill For was probably the best story in the film, and then Nancy's revenge, how it ended, I really liked its ending. The build up to it could have used a little bit more work, but for the most part, those stories were handled quite well, and I will say I was entertained by them. As for standout characters, two come to mind. First one is Marv, played by Mickey Rourke. I mean, this guy just kicks every ass and takes every name. I mean, he was a freaking badass in the film, like he was in the first film. He's just like this unstoppable force, and Mickey Rourke owns the role. I can't see anybody else playing Marv. I mean, he looks just like the guy, although you could clearly tell he's put on a couple of pounds. I mean, his face looked a bit too puffy, but that's just a nitpick. He still was pretty awesome. And I absolutely love the fact that he was involved in every single story in this film. Whether it be a minor role or a badass role, he had some part to play in each one of the stories. He's basically Shelly from the first film, who was played by Brittany Murphy. And the second standout character, and probably the sexiest standout character, was Eva Green. My God, this girl killed it in the film, and she's so fucking gorgeous, man. Her green eyes and red lips, I mean, she played the role of a seductress perfectly. She seduced me, and I'm not even in the film. I also appreciate the fact that they gave more involvement to Senator Rourke in this film, instead of having him say like a few lines in the first film, make a few appearances here and there. No, he played a major role in this film, and you really get to see how despicable and ruthless this man can be. I also love that they gave Manuk more to do in this film, and they displayed just how powerful and formidable this guy really is. I mean, in the first film, he kind of elaborates how he can inflict pain onto a person's body, but you never really get to see it. In this film, you see it in full display. Not only do you see it, but Dwight even describes how it feels to be hit by Manuk, and it oh my God, that must feel very painful. Josh Brolin as the new Dwight McCarthy, I mean, he wasn't bad, but he just didn't really stand out to me. I still liked Clive Owen's portrayal of Dwight McCarthy, the everyman who's a bit insane and has the dashing good looks. I felt like he embodied the role better than Josh Brolin. As for the other characters, I did really like the new character Johnny, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Although I think that's mostly due to the fact that Joseph Gordon-Levitt has a very likable aura to him that you just can't help but root for the guy, thus making you really root and like the characters that he portrays. But not only that, he was very smooth, very slick with the ladies. He just came off as a really cool guy, and he played the role off very well. I also really like Nancy in this film, who has now become a shell of her former self. Like, the city literally ate her up and spit her out, and she has just become more demented, more pessimistic. It's a different side to Nancy that I never saw before. She feels anger at Hartigan for committing suicide, and anger at Senator Rourke for causing Hartigan to commit suicide. So she's just very vengeful. She just hates the city. The city has now changed her for the worse, and she even mentions that in the film. Now, as much as I did enjoy many facets of this film, I did have a couple problems with it. The first problem that I had was the overall pacing of the film. It felt like it was going way too fast. Like, the dialogue scenes were really fast, the action scenes were really fast. It felt like this film was rushing all the way to the end. And it never left any time for the scene or even the audience to catch their breath and to take in what's going on in the scene. The second problem that I had is, although I did love the visual style of the film, there were a few scenes scattered throughout the entire movie that I felt like looked really cartoony, really cheesy, and just stood out as looking really awful. Like, the first scene, the opening scene in this film, I felt like looked extremely cartoony and cheap. Like, it felt like there wasn't any effort put in that first scene, and it really scared me. Like, is this what the entire film's gonna be like? Luckily for them, it does pick up after that. But it just really took me out and made me go, man, I feel like I'm watching a Saturday morning cartoon. That's not to say that the first one didn't have a few scenes like that. I'm just saying the cheap cartoony scenes stood out more in the second one than they did in the first one. The next problem that I have with this film is that I felt like some of the characters were either really weak, didn't have much to do, or just didn't really stand out and weren't as fun as they were in the first film. And I think that's partly due to the fact that some of them were portrayed by different actors. Now, I didn't have a problem with Dennis Haysbert, who replaced Michael Clarke Duncan, who sadly passed away before this film was even completed, as the new Manuk. In fact, I really liked his performance. It really embodied the performance that Michael Clarke Duncan gave in the first film, almost like he's paying homage to it. And as for Josh Brolin as the new Dwight McCarthy, I'm a bit so-so about it. The problem that I had was actually Jeremy Piven as the new Bob. I mean, seriously, was Michael Manson not available? Was he busy? Did he retire? Why couldn't you hire that guy back? I mean, I know he's a bit old now, but that didn't stop you from hiring Mickey Rourke or getting Josh Brolin, who is older than freaking Clive Owen. And then you got Miho. Miho in the first film was a freaking badass, played by Devin... I don't know how to say her name, but here's her name right here. She played Miho perfectly. She really pulled that role off. Like, she made her badass, but also sexy. In this film, she's played by Jamie Chung, who played Chi-Chi in that movie no one likes to talk about, and also starred in the worst Hangover movie, and a plethora of other bad movies that we won't name here. But her portrayal of Miho is just blah. I mean, even when she doesn't have a single line of dialogue, she still is a terrible actress. Looks and all, I mean, seriously, the only thing that she had going for her is that she looked great. Like, she looked fantastic. Other than that, I never really felt like she was a badass, like in the first film. And the last problem that I have with this film, and this is gonna really hurt to say because I did really like the character and I did like some parts to the story, but I can't deny that this story was the weakest story in the entire film. And if they were to take it out, it wouldn't affect the film whatsoever. And that is Johnny's story. Not only was his story the weakest in the entire film, but it also ends on a rather disappointing and anticlimactic note that leaves a really bad taste in your mouth. I mean, when I saw the ending to the story, I went, wow, that's the ending we're gonna get? And I personally felt like Johnny deserved a better send-off at the end of his story. The ending that he got was kind of disappointing. But, I mean, I guess that just fits the tone and atmosphere of Sin City. You're not always gonna win. It's not always gonna be a happy outcome. But overall, although I did have a couple problems with it, I still really enjoyed watching Sin City: A Dame to Kill For. And after 9 years of waiting and anticipating, I was just happy that it wasn't a pile of shit. There were still a lot of fun scenes, memorable characters, and interesting stories to make it an enjoyable watch. And that's why I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I think that it is definitely worth watching, especially for fans of the Sin City graphic novel and also the first film. But anyway, what did you guys think about this film? Did you really enjoy it and got a kick out of it? Or were you really let down and disappointed by the film? And let me know, what is your favorite Robert Rodriguez film? Comment below and let me know. And Bullshit Month is almost over, guys. I cannot wait till the end of Bullshit Month. Just got one more anime review to go. But until the next video comes, guys, hit that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Welcome to The Black Critic Guy. Like this video if you really enjoyed it, and I'm Tony Walton II, The Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.